William Marbury versus Madison uh, during the time of Thomas Jefferson, in which he defeated John Adams in the 1800s, uh, in the 1800 presidential election. Mr. Marbury had been appointed to Justice of the Peace, but in reality, he was never commissioned in the exchange of powers of the executive branch. Um, During this time, the U.S. Supreme Court did not really matter before the Marbury versus Madison case. It was a bit weak and almost obsolete in its beginning. Um, the legislative and the executive branch had more power before this court case. Um, uh, this case established the Supreme Court's power of judicial review. In other words, it declares laws unconstitutional made by or enacted by the legislative branch. Um, in essence, it has the power to make laws. And one example is the Miranda versus Arizona. Supreme Court creates rules for police officers to read suspects their rights. During this time, we see the power of the Supreme Court in creating laws in the example of the Miranda versus Arizona. We see the Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, the Constitution, judicial power in jurisdiction. Article 5 is the supreme law of the land. In essence, in short, the Marbury versus Madison was the definitive point in time in which the Supreme Court was given the power over the legislative branch to declare laws unconstitutional made by them. The founding fathers created the executive, legislative, and judicial branch to have a form of checks and balances. In other words, equal powers in their own way, but the Supreme Court having judicial review powers over the legislative branch. One thing I would change is to give more power to the Supreme Court. As we all know, the elected officials in the executive branch and in the legislative branch, these individuals come and go every so often. But the Supreme Court, the judges are there for a much longer time, and it's a lifetime position. So they would have more power in creating better laws and in which the country can benefit in a more equal way.